All right, what's up? This is Sean Longevity with Bringing Down the Band and also the New Old Heads. A segment from this last week on episode 437 of the New Old Heads, where we talked about Joey Badass's kind of comment about TDE East and if such a thing like can exist and should it exist.
This is very interesting. I'll read the lean in and then we can kind of discuss, but I'll pose my initial thoughts once we do that. But is TDE or TDE East, I should say, that a brilliant idea or is it a clout chase?
I definitely don't think it's a clout chase. But this video right here is by Read My Soul. Shouts to Read. And this is kind of where we derived the idea for coming up with the topic.
Can me think about, well, where's our QC? Where's New York City's QC? Why don't we have a quality control record label? Why don't we have a TDE record label? Why don't we have a CMG record label? You get what I'm saying? Who is our guy to go to New York? Is it Fat Joe? Is it Jada? Is it 50? Is it Jay-Z? TDE. Who is the gatekeeper or who is the OG that can start a record label to give you that quality like a TDE, right? If you think about TDE, the reason why Kendrick is as successful as he is because they have built a brand based on quality. The reason why Reason, we even paying attention to Reason, even though he removed himself from the label, is because we know he's cut from that TDE cloth that has a certain level of quality. So where is our TDE? Where's our QCs? CMG building Glorillaz, Moneybagg Yo. They got Yo Gotti doing this sound.
I would probably argue that it's beyond quality, though. Like, it's bigger than just quality.
Doing this thing. Why don't we have a New York person that's doing that?
How do you guys feel about what he said? You have some good points. I know, Terry, you just said you thought he had a good point.
Yeah, it's a good point because when you talk about the mecca of record labels, imprints, it was a big deal if you got signed to Def Jam at one point in time. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Big deal if you got signed to Cold Chillin' at one point.
And it was like, it wasn't just East Coast rappers. I mean, it started out that way, but then that paved the way for Rockefeller Records. And I think Rockefeller had a similar tone, in my personal opinion, as a TDE. A lot of the artists, I don't think, floated on their own as well as TDE kind of is. But when you talk about Rockefeller, you had, of course, Jay-Z, you had Beans, you had
Cameron at a certain point.
He kind of took the torch for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you had Freeway.
Yeah.
You had Crease and Neef. Those were like solid contenders that could really rap. You know what I'm saying? And then when you move over to like a Bad Boy, I mean, you have to mention Bad Boy when we're talking about a record label that's putting out quality artists. Their roster was fire. Although a lot of artists only ended up with one album.
Yeah.
That one album was really good, and then they kind of just dissipated. Whereas TDE is more of a machine that focuses on making sure that every artist is in their bag and doing what they're supposed to do. So yeah, there's not a new version of the record labels that I mentioned. So I think that is a missing piece. And this is something that Joey Badass probably should be trying to do on his own. I mean, I know he's kind of using this as ammo for the rap battles and things of that nature. But him being able to formulate something on the East Coast, this is really his time to shine if he's able to actually tap into the artists there that are making noise or even has time to do it. Because I don't even know of anybody else on the East Coast. I mean, talk about Dreamville, but that's East Coast adjacent. That's more down south.
Yeah, that wouldn't
it's
count.
Close to New York, but it's not considered an East Coast situation.
Right. What you think, Lon?
I feel like it's got to be somebody that doesn't make music.
Oh, okay.
Got to be somebody like Top Dog or, I mean, I know Punch rapped and stuff, but it's got to be somebody whose focus is on primarily facilitating, creating the thing, and doesn't want to be all up, quote unquote, in the videos, you know, like
singing,
dancing.
Yeah, it's a Puffy reference for those that don't know. Yeah, I think that is what's going to help the creative aspect. Jay's little joke there, courtroom got missed. But yeah, I think this take is pretty solid. Effective at grow. You know what I mean? Now, the interesting thing about a TDE version with Joey and all these artists is like, it's not like a one of one because Joey's established. Yeah, a lot of these people that we're talking about are already established to some degree. TDE established the artists.
Yes.
Every single person that's come out of there is established because of that entity. Yeah. So it's, maybe a TDE East. I don't really hate the idea, to be honest.
It's clever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really hate it. It's kind of like Bad Boy South. I don't hate it, but I also don't think it's necessary. It's like, I think there's a better way to go about attacking this, and I think it's very much a grassroots approach. You have to have somebody who really cares about the culture of the city, somebody that really cares about putting artists first and not being out in front, not, like wanting to cultivate the craft specifically. Like, these are the artists I believe in. I want to push them out there. I want to do everything that I can to make sure that these guys reach the pinnacle or the area that they need to reach. And I make this comment a little bit later, but that's the problem with creatives that want to be at the forefront of this. Joey Badass should not do this. Like, he's a creative. He's got other jobs. His job is to be a creative. You know what I mean? I think Joey might have missed the wave on being on a TDE East, because then it would just be like signing a free agent. This needs to grow from the grassroots, in my opinion. Whatever, and all, Def Jam South or
when
whatever.
Death Row was going to go Death Row East.
Yeah,
But that was affiliated with Death Row. That was supposed to be what, depending on who you ask, what Suge gave to Tupac when he was trying to leave Death Row. If you're going to do TDE East, then if you were even going to put the out there, you need to holler at Top Dog before you even put the idea out there.
Yeah,
that seems weird.
But
I think that's what he's kind of. I think it's more of a joke. You know what I'm saying?
It was a bar. It was a bar. It was just kind of him flexing, like, "Hey, I'm doing what y'all are doing, but on the East Coast." That's all it was.
Because it is going with this battle that's going on with him, pretty much going up against everybody on TDE. Well, not everybody, but few people on TDE other than the person that he wants to go up against. And I think that's why he keeps trying to poke at TDE, because he's wanting that response from Kendrick. But I mean, it's clever, and he's definitely showing out when it comes to what he's doing with this.
The thing is like, it's not the same, because like the Kendrick vitriol that he had for Drake is not the same type of vitriol that he has for Joey Badass. Joey's just a talented rapper. It's a little different
Situation.
Still poking the bear with all of this. All this goes into the...
It's kind of funny watching this back, because when I edit these, I've been trying out this AI feature that kind of merges two scenes when I make a cut. And you can kind of see every once in a while, like, if you look at Terry's face here, J Diff, he's on the right, you can kind of see it like morph a little bit. And I try not to do it when it morphs a little bit too weird, but you can kind of see it like morph, and that's like that feature.
Doing with this situation.
Still poking the bear.
It's super weird.
With all of this. All this goes into the recent battles that have been released since we last talked. So all of this seems to be, to Terry's point, still poking the bear, trying to get the bear to follow the tree, which is obviously Kendrick. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think a TDE East is necessary.
See, that was going to be my next question, Lone, is would New York even benefit from this based off how everything is, the current landscape?
Look, just the way that the way that I like, I know what I'm about to get into here, and that it's valid too, but it's not going to have the benefit of what everybody thinks. Like, if all of a sudden a TDE East pops up, it's going to be like, oh, New York's back in the spotlight, but it's going to be very short-sighted, because there's going to be no type of infrastructure built. There's no infrastructure built for New York's future. It's just grabbing people, and it's just like it's just optics. I like to do things, and this is maybe just a personal thing. I respect things that are like kind of built from like the ground up, and just like we're talking about the NBA teams and football teams and stuff like that. I have a lot more respect for teams that build and grow within an organization outside of actually like just going out and like finding the talent and bringing them on the roster. I don't think that this is something that you just grab the hot people right now and you stick them on a label and do that. And number one, labels aren't really that relevant for people that are already on. It would be cool to see some actual artist development from a team, from that aspect. I think that's also where I'm biased too. Like, I've tried the label thing, and I do run like a very small boutique label. But I witnessed the limitations in myself with myself being a creative. Like, it's hard. It's hard to run, and you really just kind of need a dedicated person to do this. Because then I think it's actually contributing to the quality of the art.
Yeah.
Long term.
Yeah.
That's the only way. Like, you can't just come in here and grab a couple superstars and then you got no bench.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's why TDE stands out too, because every one of their artists is their own unique artist on their own. They don't sound like each other. Nobody on TDE sounds like the next person.
I kind of disagree with that, but
Even when it comes down to the Doechii, and then you have SZA, and then you have Sir.
I think Ray Vaughn, Reason. There was another dude that was like, Reason kind of has J-Rock elements. Isaiah Rashad has Kendrick mixed with other TDE artist elements on there for a while. I think they all have a similar type of sound.
Cali.
But it's like a specific TDE.
So when
Cali
we
sound.
talk about
Yeah, because Isaiah Rashad is not from Cali. You know what I mean? Neither is Doechii.
the starters, so if we're talking about starters, let's say that Kendrick is still on TDE.
Yeah, Schoolboy,
you talk about
Absol's different. Yeah, for
Absol,
sure. Isaiah Rashad was kind of in that. You know, they all the B Squad dudes who were all dope. They all kind of had that, like, a little bit of Kendrick, a little bit of TDE, whatever that is. They rapped over the same similar type of beats.
Yeah,
they did the same kind of stuff with their voices a little bit. You know,
J-Rock sounds.
Yeah,
It's different. I mean, it's a Cali sound.
Yeah, for sure,
for sure,
You know
for sure.
what I'm
But it's a specific curated Cali sound.
Yeah, and then Schoolboy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like I kind of feel like they have the most unique record label as a whole, in my personal opinion. Like, if we're just talking about the starting rosters.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Dreamville's record label they're unique too, but it's not. I don't think it's the same way as TDE is.
Nah. Like, it's like there's not even a comparison between the two, and that's not even really a shot at Dreamville. Yeah, it's not.
No,
it's just like TDE is the standard. Period.
It's kind of the point you were making as far as an artist running it versus somebody that's actually into running the business.
Yeah,
and I think that's where they defer.
Yeah,
because we've seen the situation with
Ari Lennox.
Ari Lennox, who doesn't have any ill will.
I got a whole video on that if you want to check it out.
Towards Dreamville. I mean, she was actually on this last Dreamville festival.
Yeah.
And then soon after that, she kind of announced her departure and that everybody was cool. But that's probably a key factor in why it's not working out the way that she wants it to work out, because an artist is running.
It's like, it makes sense for, like Ninth Wonder is a good example of, now granted, I feel like he kind of does too much. He can do whatever he wants to do, but I'm saying, like, as far as teaching and still producing and still doing all this stuff, like, Ninth would be a good example if he wasn't producing as much, because he's curated Rhapsody's career. He's helped, the Soul Council, influenced a lot of the Soul Council producers, like Soundtrack and stuff like that. But also, like, there are a couple, like Ruben Vincent. Yeah. There's a couple other artists that, GQ for a minute, like, there were a couple artists that I felt like, I forget, what's the name of the label? Jamla, yeah. I feel like Jamla was kind of building that, and I feel like Ninth, but even Ninth, it just didn't have quite the momentum, because I feel like you almost need a dedicated person that's just focused on that. Now, maybe, and I could be wrong. I think I'm wrong. I also think too, like, I don't know the business infrastructure of Jamla. Like, maybe there's somebody else in there that's helping manage stuff to that degree, but there is something to be said about the dedicated artist development, dedicated planning from somebody who isn't a creative. And I'm just speaking from first-hand account as well. Could be absolutely wrong on this. I do think there's something to be said, though, about somebody who is that is their focus. It's not making, here I am talking over myself, music. It's just like, nah, y'all are dope. How do I get y'all and put all my time and energy into that? And, like, there's something to be said about people that are creatives that every once in a while they're like, you know what? I want to get back in my creative bag a little bit.
Yeah.
And that would be hard. And that would be, for a person like Ninth Wonder, it would be hard to turn that off.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, just to become the executive. Yeah. That would be, for him, that'd be very hard.
I don't even think it's like about like being hard to turn it off. It's just like, when you have a singular focus on something, it's a lot easier to just hyper focus on this thing and put all of your energy into this one thing. And so you kind of need somebody who is just not even interested in it. They understand it, but they're just like, they're done with it. You know, J. Cole is J. Cole. He's an artist. You know what I mean? But you kind of need somebody who's just like, nah, my goal is to put y'all where you need to be. That's the goal. My solitary focus. Not, I'm going to go write some raps over here. I'm going to go do this over here. Or I'm going to go produce these records. It's like there's something to be said about spreading yourself a little bit too thin. And not that it can't be done. Because that's not the case. It can be done and it can be executed at a high level. And I think Jamla is a good example of that. I think Dreamville is a good example of that. But there's a significant difference between a Jamla and a TDE.
To turn that off.
And we see Punch, who is another big dog over at TDE.
Yeah, for sure.
He raps, but he put his own career to the side.
True. He intentionally did that.
Right, intentionally. And then you have Top Son. He doesn't rap at all. He's only in the business to run the business.
Yeah.
That's his focus, is actually continuing to build the momentum and keep TDE as an entertainment company that produces these high quality acts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's their focus. That's what they want to do. And they literally changed the course of what Doechii was doing. Doechii came out, and we've talked about this on the show. He came out in a whole different lane, and they was like, nah, we need to pivot. You need to pretty much just be you.
Yeah.
I don't know if the only thing that I would say is I'm not 100% sure that was a her thing, like a TDE thing or a her thing. I don't know. Correct me in the comments. Maybe Terry's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Work for it too.
It absolutely worked.
But I think that's important for almost everything. Like any type of conglomerate in general. You know, like I think you're always going to run into problems when the creative aspect overlaps with the production aspect in general. Yeah, and I've talked about this quite a bit. Like my email tag is Creative Connoisseur. You see that on all my social media and stuff like that because I do a lot of creative things. But one thing that I will be up and out front and acknowledging with everybody is that, like, if I was just doing one thing, I know that I would be more successful in that one thing. And, you know, it's hard to multi-manage multiple entities in the creative world when you have different things pulling you all the time. It's hard to get refocused. And I'm not saying it can't be done to a certain degree, because I can do it to a certain degree, and there are people that do it way better than I do. But there is something to be said about just the solitary focus being important. You know, I've talked about and thought about many times on this show, specifically like taking more of a backseat role in production and amplifying everything. And I've explored that idea very thoroughly, not only because I want to put more voices in this particular space, but also because, I'm weighing the benefits of the work, like on the business. You've heard the phrase work on the business versus in the business and stuff like that. Potentially would open up more space for me to primarily focus on growth. The one thing that I will say, though, is it doesn't seem, the more that I go through this, I went through this process with the new old heads, is it doesn't really affect it much, because it's really just me sitting up on here and talking for 2 hours. And that's really it, Now, I don't really want to be up here and sitting up here and clicking all the buttons at the same time and going left and right, and then also triggering everything at the same time, triggering the reacts and managing the show and all that stuff. Because from that perspective, then it means that I'm less present when I'm having the conversations, which has happened in the past. And I think that's kind of what fueled this. But generally speaking, if I have to go and produce 2 records over here for 2 different people, and I'm also working on a solo record, but I'm also working on a podcast, but I'm also teaching 4 days a week, but I'm also working for this creative design firm doing some stuff, like it spreads you in a whole bunch of different type of areas to where, like, you have to be really hyper focused on how you allocate your time. And you can't really put 100% into everything, because in the back of your mind that you have to pull and go do something else. And I think that psychological piece is the difference in somebody like a TDE. You know what I mean? So anyways.
It is something that's needed. And we've actually had that discussion too, as far as how TDE runs their camp, actually ARs, and make sure that the artist is, doing what they're supposed to do, versus just putting out a whole bunch of stuff from a whole bunch of.
Yeah. Do you guys think the artists that are in New York, the established artists, how do I want to say this, by not setting up or having a equivalent to this that's been established on the East, is that just due to people you think they just don't want to do it? Or is it people being honest and saying the climate just doesn't call for it?
I think there are people that want to do it, there's such a blueprint there for all these New York labels. You know, whether it be whatever you thought about them, the Rockefellers, the Bad Boys, the Murder Incs. There's a lineage of acts and record companies, you know, that had a, you know, for lack of a better term, quality control.
That's fair.
They knew how to.
Yeah, I think the more that I think about this idea, I think Terry and Jay's point about Rockefeller and Bad Boy and these labels that were established in kind of the 90s, I think those are good blueprints. I think they are pretty solid. And I think that's probably from the lineage that it's the lineage of TDE's lineage, is kind of looking at what they were doing and what they did wrong and what they did well, you know? So yeah, I'll step back a little bit on that one. I think that is probably pretty accurate, but we don't really see anything. TDE is really kind of the model that we haven't really seen since.
To keep their artists at the top of the charts and, you know, at the forefront of whatever was going on in the culture at the time. And so I just think right now I don't want to say, because everyone wants to blame, you know, why don't the OGs do this? Why don't they do that? I think it also comes from the fact that Nicki Minaj was signed by somebody from the South.
Yeah.
You know, 50 Cent was signed by somebody from the West.
She actually was signed by 2 people from the South before anybody got her on, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, she had other situations. I know, you know.
He was with Waka Flocka and them. And
Waka Flocka. Yeah,
at first.
You know, and her first group, you know, had some affiliation with, of all people, Full Force. But that's way back in the, that's before, you know, she was Nicki Minaj.
Yeah.
But when you think about that era, you know, the fact that 2 of the biggest artists to come out of New York in the past, I don't know, now we're talking about 25 to 20 years, were signed by people outside of New York. They let those gems get out of the city. And so now, I don't know if that affected the city in a way that we don't understand. I mean, they've tried to have their movements, but there's always been some foolishness. You know, remember when we thought Troy Ave was going to be him? Maybe not y'all. No. Maybe not us. But
Troy had a little run.
At one point, it was like, okay, Troy Ave had a little thing going, but then, you know, that shooting and all the other stuff with what's his name? I can't even remember. But Taxstone, yeah, you know.
They were giving the keys to the wrong people for a minute.
That too.
It was, you had Tekashi.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
You had Ice Spice as.
Yeah, and also you had but they also, you know, they pushed Dave East for a while. And people like that who's more of a classical sound. But I think the issue comes down to infrastructure. I think it comes down to infrastructure. These are just like artists that are out doing their thing in a modern, even like the Pop Smoke or Ice Spice or even Tekashi. These are people trying to exist in the internet landscape that are just trying to get social media numbers and just get popping and then go wherever it goes. It's not the infrastructure around building and artist development that a TDE does have.
As of late.
Yeah. Be careful with them keys.
At one point in time, A Boogie was actually probably leading the race.
Mm-hmm.
And that just fizzled all the way out. It's just, there hasn't been, it's weird because like New York kind of lost their sound for a while. And I think that's what's making Joey stand out a whole lot more, is because he's actually flexing that New York style like it's supposed to be done. And it's making people excited about the situation.
I would say that New York probably didn't lose its sound, because it exists. There are plenty of artists. We showcase them all the time on Bringing Down the Band that have that New York sound. Again, I think it all comes down to infrastructure and who people are paying attention to. They exist, but there's nobody curating and putting these people together to create this force.
You have to find people equally as good as him that not even necessarily just rap in order to create a situation that's going to make sense and be a powerhouse.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Joey on that, man. He's definitely awakening some energy in the situation and hopefully the city that's needed, because again, nobody from New York City has really been putting on. You got Buffalo, they've been putting on, but nobody from New York City has been holding down hip hop the way that somebody that started it is supposed to.
I don't know. I agree with them, but at the same time, like, I don't feel like the onus is on the artist here. You know, maybe it's on the OGs a little bit, potentially, but like there are a lot of New York artists that are doing a lot of really good, dope music in a bunch of variety of different styles. Skies is still making music. Dave East is making music. Marlon Craft is really dope. Smith & Wesson just dropped another project that's really good. You know, the historical rappers are still going, doing their thing. You know, Busta Rhymes is still releasing music. Nas is still releasing music. There's a lot of young New York cats that are doing stuff. I just don't think there's any infrastructure. I don't think there's anybody like really developing talent. And I'm going to keep going back to this idea that, like, you know, obviously I'm an educator, so I'm going to lean on this, but you have to develop the skills. You have to create the environment for people to go from here to here or here to here. You know what I mean? Like you have to do that. And we're just kind of in a just do this to get popular type of mode right now. And TDE is such a stretch and such a difference from that.
That's fair.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I didn't think. Yeah, it's not been the 5 boroughs. You know, at one point everyone was looking to Buffalo, which is crazy. Just because, has anybody other than Rick James come out of Buffalo before? You know, somebody.
Maybe I'm missing some.
Yeah, somebody gonna get me to line. You know, say I'm lying.
Somebody gonna line you up in the.
Yeah,
I mean, the OGs, they've still been dropping stuff, but when we talk about a new fleet of people, when you think of the West Coast, when you think of down,
I mean, we can talk about Pro Era, the Underachievers, Flatbush Zombies. There have been a lot that have come out in the last like 10 years, 10, 15 years. There have been actually a lot. I just don't think the infrastructure there. I just don't think anybody had the foresight to create a TDE.
Down south, even the Midwest, you know what I'm saying? It seems like there's constantly somebody coming through the ranks and trying to make noise with the people that are actually doing something versus having a sound that's not unique to your soil, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So.
No, I feel you on that 100%. It's been a long time.
It has.
For someone to be deemed, you know, elite, if you will, or upper echelon. So it's always.
I would say that it's been that way on a mainstream type of level. On a Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole type of level. Joey Badass has been the closest that has got to that. That's also like embodied the characteristics of hip hop. More so than just popularity. Joey is that guy. You know, he is that. He was supposed to be that guy.
We always relying on the OGs at this point. Plus, everything is still in the South. So, hey, it's still down there.
And then regardless,
out west. I say out west too.
Yeah, and then regardless of how well Joey is or how good he's doing right now, a lot of his energy and his popularity is from power. There's a lot of people that didn't know or aren't familiar with him being a rapper. They didn't hear 1990. They're not familiar with how well Joey rapped because he kind of, you know what I'm saying, dipped away for a minute. So this new energy I think that he has and hunger for actually wanting to rap and let people know, hey, I came out in the same era as these other cats.
Yeah.
And I kind of took a back seat to it for whatever reason. But now he's trying to pretty much cement his name again and flex that New York shit ish. So I'm with it.
All right. I mean, hey, he's good enough to do it. That's for damn sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Shouts to the fellas. I agree with a lot of what they're saying, but I'll still go back to, I think it's really about who's willing to work. What was that rap line that Fonte said that Jazzy Jeff told him something about? He's like, are you willing to work 10 years for your dream? 7 years later, now I'm seeing what he mean. It's like, I want to see, and you know, I'm from Indiana. You know, I'm in the middle of a series where Indiana's beating New York's ass right now in the NBA, which is great. But it doesn't mean that I don't have a lot of respect for New York and New York artists. And I would love to see a TDE-like entity form not only in New York, but also in other areas. You know, I would like to see this be a thing to where, like, there's real care and dedication around the artistic element of rapping, hip hop production, and growth from an organic standpoint. People that believe in the artistry, people that want to take the artistry forward and want to have like staying power, you know, and not just do it from the perspective of I can do this in an isolationist one-off type of manner, because that's what we're seeing in a lot of these areas. That's what we're seeing in New York. There's a lot of one-off artists that are really good, but who is the entity that's saying, hey, who is the entity that, you know, 10 years ago, or when TDE was even started back in what, 2005 or 6 or 4, or whenever that was getting going, or maybe a little bit later than that, you know, where they're bringing these super talented kids around, harnessing their talent, you know, rinse and repeat, learning all this stuff, pushing it out in this particular type of way. Where's that? You know, that needs to exist. I need people to approach this not from an isolationist standpoint, and not from I need this to happen in like 2 or 3 years. I need people to actually choose this to be their career, and choose this to see the vision, and to have those people, those OGs, if you will, that can cultivate this, which this is their thing. You know, that's what I would like to see. And maybe this is happening in subsects and silos in different areas. And, you know, if you like that type of thing and you see it happening, I think people should get out there and they should support it a little bit more. So I don't know. That's all I have to say about that. But yeah, TDE East. I want to see a brand new East Coast Renaissance modeling after TDE, but not the same as. And it doesn't need to be called that. You know, they can do their own thing. There's plenty of talent there, I'm sure, living there. So, all right, that's a segment from episode 437. So make sure you check that out. We do drop these episodes exist the full 2 hours. We have uncut episodes that exist on Patreon, which has got a whole bunch of other stuff too. So make sure you check that out. So, yep. All right. Till next time.